But first, our top story covers Union Pacific, where the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division Union is fearing the potential for 1,000 employees to be furloughed. Joanna Marsh is here to talk with us about it. Joanna, this comes at a time where we really thought the railroad, specifically Uber Freight, specifically Union Pacific, were really focused on rebuilding some of their staff numbers. Why now the sudden decision to furlough 1,000?
Yeah, I think in general the railroads are, or at least they've said publicly that they're interested in rebuilding their staff numbers, and I think even Union Pacific has said that they're still trying to hire in certain parts of their network, but this recent sort of potential furlough could affect over 1,000 maintenance of way employees throughout UP's network. And UP has said that, it's because there are just several kind of I guess UP has said in communication with the union representing maintenance of way employees that there are some factors such as sort of the weather events like the hurricane or tropical storm in California and the western U.S. And I think even now volumes have improved, but they still haven't gotten to where, of course, the railroads would like them to be. So, kind of given the macro environment that not just Union Pacific, but other freight companies, as you're well aware, have faced in 2023, they have decided to potentially furlough those employees and furlough. Of course, just for the sake of defining it, is when people don't work and they work without pay, and then with the idea that they could be called back at some point versus being laid off, which is just, you let people go and that's it. So that's kind of where the situation is right now.
So, of course, we know that Jim Vena stepped in as CEO at UP earlier this year, and I guess that was one of the things that he really addressed was getting that workforce back up to full capacity and at the same time using that full capacity workforce to really increase their service standards, whether or not that was mandated by Congress, as the rail service bill was still kind of up in the air at the time. Can you touch on that a little bit and the change of leadership, if maybe that was kind of the wrong direction and maybe almost Jim Vena kind of gave some false hope that this was happening? I guess that could be what it feels like to if you're an employee who is on the threat of getting furloughed, right?
Yeah, I think, not trying to put words into anyone's mouths, but I think when Jim Vena became the new CEO of Union Pacific, I think some of the unions actually had, put out statements kind of expressing their reservations over the appointment because Jim Vena has been known as a cost-cutting guru, which on one hand Wall Street might like, but the unions don't like. And I think there was concern when he was first appointed that he wouldn't honor some of the agreements that had been kind of just established between the unions and Union Pacific over. Not so much sick leave, but just kind of like work scheduling. So, and I think Wall Street has Jim Vena has, he actually was on the leadership team of Union Pacific before being CEO. For a time, he was the point person for implementing precision scheduled railroading, which is a way to sort of work schedules and to sort of streamline them, but it's also kind of viewed as a way of cutting costs, and so I think some have viewed him as someone who isn't afraid to go there in terms of cutting costs, even though I think lately, because of regulatory pressure and even perhaps safety issues such as East Palestine, there's been publicly more of a desire to shift less to, the desire to less lean on traditional practices like furloughing and sort of, I don't want to say embrace, but sort of well, I guess you could say embrace, like look into to other measures like like what Norfolk Southern does or something, like, which is like to not consider furloughs as an option, or to not lean on sort of layoffs as a way to cut costs.
So that feeds exactly into my final question for you, Joanna, because I think it's really important, is that agreement that was reached with the union back at this time last year, which was really kind of monumental for a lot of these unions, and specifically with our class ones. Does that provide any of these employees any type of protection at all? Was there anything in that agreement that gave them the protection, and maybe now forced the railroad itself to lean on that untraditional way of saying furloughing instead of just straight up layoffs?
Right. Yeah. So I think, I'm, to be honest, I'm not an expert on the labor agreements. I think that there is language within the agreements about like how to, or at least if not language, but there are standards about like how to address furloughs should they happen, and that sort of thing. And I think with last year's labor agreements, I think these kinds of issues related to furloughs in terms of like headcount staffing, so like sick leave and vacation leave, it was decided that those issues be addressed on a kind of a more local level versus kind of covering sort of having something that covers like everyone, like in the U.S. So I think, the spokesperson for the Maintenance of Way union, had mentioned that they're going to be speaking with Union Pacific this week, and if those furloughs are proceeding, they'll probably, try to, hammer out something. Of course, that would be least painful, I guess, to their union members, and then we'll kind of see how things go in terms of whether Union Pacific is able to call back all those employees when they do that.
It's going to be interesting to watch for sure, and we'll see if any of the other railroads end up becoming victims of layoffs or furloughs as well. Joanna, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.